Holy smokes, Batman writer Scott Snyder reveals anxieties and frustrations at DC during New 52. Is it now that he's speaking out about what's happened at DC Comics now that he's doing his own, what is it, the new jacket press, whatever it is he's doing now? No, honestly, it is actually interesting to see because the problems that arise for a comic writer when you're working for a major publisher on a major title are very different than the problems you run into when you're a small publisher. Here I'm sitting in my office and my wife is amazing. I came home and she took all the t-shirts while I was at work that people had ordered from Downcast and she put them in bags and labeled them. So now all I have to do is print out shipping labels and throw them in the mail. So that's fantastic. So hopefully that'll be happening soon, but I'm streaming twice tonight and you'll by the time you see this video, I'll be at work again. So it's been kind of crazy, but the challenges with making your own comic book series are almost entirely revolve around making your fans happy, making the fans like your thing. The other problems surrounding it are all the publishing issues, printing issues, all sorts of things that can come up. But the one thing that doesn't happen is nobody tells me what I can and can't do with my story, especially not last minute. That certainly doesn't happen. So as we look into this, it seems like eventually, after time, lips get looser. Why am I having a hard time talking? Lips loosen over time. Just a few weeks ago came the official 10-year anniversary of DC's New 52. I can't believe it's been that long. I remember when that happened. The line-wide reboot at the publisher that was as controversial as it was innovative. I remember people losing their minds. The New 52 was the root of a major element for DC, like the Batman storyline, Court of Owls, and Death of the Family, the addition of Harley Quinn to the Suicide Squad, and the return of Barbara Gordon as Batgirl, but was also where many ideas started and stopped. The huge oral history about the entirely publishing initiative debuted on Polygon today with many key members of its New 52 interviews, including former co-publisher Dan DiDio and writers like Judd Winnick and Paul Cornell and Scott Snyder. I'm going to skip down to the juicy part. Now, it's easy to forget the stories that started and stopped, but when I think of the New 52, I actually think of Scott Snyder's run. I think of the Court of Owls. That to me was in essence, what the New 52 was. And I highly enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Somewhere along the line in his run, it became less interesting. It seemed more of a one-trick pony kind of thing. But I think I think most people would agree his best writing happened during that time period, or at least the beginning of that time period. So my question is, was the writing so good because of the pressure that he was under? Or was the writing so good because those were the stories he had to tell and he got them out of his system? I'm not sure what the answer is, but I got to think that there's something to do with that pressure that makes you have to perform or choke, like one of the two. So, quoting here, this is Scott Snyder saying, that sort of fluidity, that lack of rules or blueprints led to issues because between different groups, there were different ideas of what DC or what was DC history, Snyder said. So you do something and then you'd hear from a different group that one of those characters you had mentioned being in the past wasn't in the past anymore because they had a new origin. Again, everyone was working out of love of story, trying to tell the best tells in their area. It was just difficult without more set rules. Continuity, is it restrictive, or is it important? Is it foundational? In this case, again, if you're making indie comics, continuity is whatever you make it to be. And then clearly the longer you go, the more difficult it gets. And at that point in time, they had to reset things. I can't imagine being the guy really that was tasked with setting the new stage for it. That's a little crazy when you think about it. He did actually say that he had a literal panic attack after learning he would be writing the first Batman #1 in 70 years. That's pretty intense. So he also added, the thing that I do wish was different at the time is that I wish there was a plan. A lot of it came from, I think, the suddenness of the whole idea. Now, my question is, because this was such a massive change for DC Comics, why is it that it was so sudden? It was so sudden of a concept, like let's just reboot everything. At the same time, they didn't actually have plans. I'm still confused about all of this. Even after this long, and DC continues to do things like that over time with events and things where they make massive changes or they plan to make massive changes, but they don't plan well enough. And I don't know. It seems like a half baked. That's what this all comes down to. The suddenness of the whole idea, and they didn't have the whole thing planned out a lot. He continues, I think there was an element of spontaneity to it that was exciting. There was this sense of possibility, this sense of purpose. We were going to make these characters fun and dynamic and show that we love what we loved about them, but in ways that pushed them forward. But in the long run, I think that it hurt us not to have a blueprint that people could follow group to group, because it created these silos of creators and editors that were protective of their vision of what they were building. So the question is, like, you got to be also, again, everyone's going to be protective of their stories and what they have to write when they're conflicting. But apparently Scott Snyder is the one that won because he got his way. They told him that in the Court of Owls, they didn't feel, these are editors at DC, they didn't feel like Batman had totally solved the problem when it came to the Court of Owls. And they decided that he should, that should be corrected, and that Batman should have fully understood it and fixed the problem. 100% resolution. Scott Snyder put his foot down, and he says, I remember standing in Target pushing a cart of paper towels, screaming into the phone, you go down the hallway and you tear up my contract. Oh boy. Now, Scott Snyder had written things before this point. He'd written, I think he worked on Swamp Thing. He'd done his vampire, story beforehand. He's probably done a few things. I know he did some like short fiction, prose fiction stuff. But to have the gall to say something like that, and I don't know how much of this is, selective memory or embellishment, but to have the to be so into what you wrote, to put your foot down like that, I don't know, man. That seems crazy. All in all, I think in the long run, it worked out well. The Court of Owls, it's great. It's written very well. But I begs the question, how many creators put their foot down and they were wrong, and their editors and the publishers were right when they put their foot down? I don't know. Again, all of these problems, they don't exist when you're running your own show. Anyway, let me know what you think about Scott Snyder and the New 52. Do you disagree with some of my takeaways from it? I'd love to know in the comments below. Don't forget to check out Downcast 3. It's on Indiegogo right now. I think we passed $45,000. And also check out Fatal. We're still in production. Charlie's drawing pages. We're working through that. I cannot wait to get these books shipped out to you. And it looks like the next thing that's coming are some t-shirts for people that ordered those. So thanks so much. I'll see you in the next video.